If you're a fan of older anime, you know how dark these shows can get, and when we say dark, we mean midnight in Alaska. These shows portray some of the most unimaginable themes with a great plotline and unthinkable brutal and gory violence. Whether you're looking for such gruesome shows or want to revisit some of the best of the genre, this video is for you, because as the title says, we'll be exploring 15 violent, gory, and gritty mecha animes. So oil up your mechas and let's get into the action. Neon Genesis Evangelion. Evangelion is an iconic show that ranks among the top 50 anime to date, and really, not much needs to be said about it since revealing too much of the story could ruin the viewing experience. Still, the premise of the show is that Tokyo City is being threatened by monstrous creatures who are ironically named the Angels, and the only weaponry efficient against them is the Evangelion mech. However, the only person capable of perfectly piloting them is our hero Shinji, who is synced with the machine via his biometrics. This show has a lot to offer, from breathtaking fight scenes to a deep psychological delve into the hero's sufferings about being burdened by the weight of holding humanity's fate in his hands, then to incredibly dark themes and one of the greatest songs of all time. I mean seriously, if you're not already familiar, you need to check out the theme song Cruel Angel Thesis. We don't think it's possible to deny how much of a banger this song is even today. Evangelion is one of the saddest and darkest psychological dramas out there, anime or otherwise. You won't regret investing your time in it. Bokurano. This anime starts with a light theme in which 15 children go out exploring during their summer vacation and end up finding a cave by the seashore. But what's so special about this cave is that there are high-tech gadgets stored in there. That's something no man would anticipate finding. Forget about children seeing that one coming. But how did it end up there? So the children soon meet a man in the cave who explains the machines, and he tells them that he was a programmer working on a special game in which a robot has to defeat 15 alien invasions. But he also offered to let them test it out. Sounds pretty fun, doesn't it? But here's the dark catch. That machine wasn't actually a game, but a real fighting mecha, and the man had tricked them into a contract as whoever would pilot these machines would surely die because the robot feeds on the pilot's life force. Now these children must stake their lives to fight off their enemies and save the Earth, since either way, death is assured for them. It's a 24-episode anime with an above 7 rating on My Anime List, or MAL, so this is a great one to plan as a weekend watch. The show is dark, tense, and unsettling, and the personal struggles and crises of the characters amid the carnage only adds to the frustration that the show builds up. Also, you should know that the show's director did not like the original manga story very much and has made some changes, even though the basic concept remains the same, so it's bound to deviate from the manga, but it is still a highly recommended show for those looking for something eerie to watch. Getter Robo, Armageddon. This isn't a separate show, but rather an OVA of the main Getter Robo series that trailblazed the path of shows based on transforming and combining robots. However, the OVA has amassed a greater popularity owing to its apocalyptic appeal, but don't you worry because we'll provide you with a quick context of the Getter Robo world so that you may enjoy the OVA to the fullest. So years ago, strange Getter rays had emerged on Earth, which a certain Dr. Sodome used as an extremely strong power source to build 3 Getter robots to defend their world from humanoid dinosaurs who had evolved in the underground, and these robots were piloted by 3 violent men, Nagare Ryoma, Jin Hayato, and Tomo Musashi. However, a greater crisis arises when Nagare is accused of and jailed for the murder of Dr. Sodome. But the twist is the Doctor was never murdered at all. Things keep getting worse when Dr. Sodome returns with his new invention, the Shin Dragon, which gets hit by a nuclear warhead and wipes out 99% of the planet's population. But still, this isn't it. Worse things happen again, because Earth is also being invaded by mysterious aliens who can warp human flesh to form hideous creatures. Now, who's gonna save the Earth from drowning in a sea of catastrophes? This show is filled with apocalyptic themes that die-hard mecha fans would love, and its hot-blooded mecha action is made even better with some high-quality animation. Also, the OVA has only 13 episodes and an above 7 rating on MAL as well, so you can binge watch it in a single day. On to the next anime. Space Runaway Ideon. This show isn't as popular in the anime community, perhaps because the plot and characters aren't meant for just anybody. It's a typical mecha show of the 80s that, if given a proper chance, could be an exciting experience for mecha fans. The story takes place in the future, in the year 2300, when humans have begun exploring other planets and found many dead alien civilizations. They eventually encounter a living alien species called the Buff Clan on the planet Solo in the Andromeda Galaxy. There, a bunch of human archaeologists also find the remains of 3 large trucks that combine to form the super mecha Ideon, and they repair it so that it functions properly. However, the Buff Clan also deems the humans as aliens and launches an attack on them, which leads to some counterattacks, after which a war is waged between the 2 civilizations to claim the Ideon as their own, causing death and destruction of the settlements on different planets. This anime has 39 episodes and a 7 score on MAL. It very cleverly deals with the themes of racial tensions and its outcomes, as there's a never-ending war that not only leads to violence, but an apocalyptic fate for the world. It's also dark and twisted, and sometimes even considered a prototype or early inspiration for the iconic Evangelion. So it's worth checking out, and while you're at it, check out the great movie, The Ideon, Be Invoked as well. MD Geist. This anime has the second type of anime protagonist. You know, the sort of grey morale main lead with a hunger for insane violence and a heavy kill score. Yeah, our titular character Geist is like that, only because he's a genetically engineered killing machine of the most dangerous soldiers, or the MD unit. But he was cryogenically frozen and set to revolve around the planet Jera when the whole unit became crazy and homicidal. However, he returned years later when he crashed on the planet and awoke again to go on a killing spree with the goal of annihilating the whole planet and fighting off immensely powerful enemies. It only has 2 OVAs, so you can finish it up in about 90 minutes. Also, it might only have a score of 5 on MAL, but if you want to watch something with pure violence that spares none and has some of the most graphic, gooey, and splashy gore scenes in an over-the-top chaotic war setting with some dark themes amplified with great music, then, try this one out. Give it a shot. Armored Troopers Votoms. What is war and what is sacrifice if you don't know the cause you're fighting for? What if you were a soldier in such a war? What would your psychological state look like? Our protagonist, Chiriko Kuvi, was part of such a war that had been going on for a century between the Gilgamesh Confederation and the Balarant Union, burning up about 200 worlds in their conflict whose cause had long been forgotten, and then finally concluding in a truce. But this is just the beginning of the story. After the peace settlement, Chiriko was sent to another unit for a secret mission, but this mission was far more suspicious than simply secretive because he was tasked with stealing confidential military information from his own military. Yeah, you heard that right. He was tasked with being a mole for his own army and then left to die after a betrayal. Luckily, he survived, but fate was not fully on his side because he was then chased by the conspirators and the military, arrested, and tortured. He somehow escapes this too, but he's still chased by the real wrongdoers while he tries to unravel the mystery behind this conspiracy. This series has several OVAs, while the anime that aired on TV has 52 episodes and a pretty good ranking on MAL. But this isn't your typical mecha anime with extravagant firepower robots and heroes caught in the most unhinged situations, but then it isn't like it has no mechas either. It does have war machines and robots, which is literally in its title. However, it presents a more realistic view of what an actual mecha war would look like and closely follows the psychological development of the main character. You would still get to enjoy some pretty gritty action sequences with an interesting plot, so it's worth adding to your watch list. Hades Project Zeorymer. Now, this one's a typical mecha anime that stands similar in its essence to popular animes like Evangelion, Star Driver, Dangayo, and others. But of course, each of these animes is in its own unique league. Additionally, the anime is a 4-episode OVA adapted from the manga of the same title, but it follows a completely different track from it. Now, about the story, an evil organization called the How Dragon wants to dominate the world, and for this purpose they fund an electronics firm to construct 8 giant robots. But one of the scientists betrays the firm and steals one of the mechas to hand over to the government while the rest are destroyed. This was the Zeorymer, and it was genetically linked with an embryo that was fated to be its pilot. Now, our story takes place 15 years after this event, and that embryo has grown up into a normal teenager named Masato Akitsu. But of course, that was not his fate, and he has always been under government surveillance for their secret project called The Last Guardian. And he came face to face with his reality when he saw his parents taking money in exchange for raising him. Guess how agonizing that must have been on him. After witnessing such a heart-wrenching scene, he takes the helm of his fate to fight the evil How Dragon, who has rebuilt the 7 mechas and is set out to capture the Zeorymer. Next up on the list, we've got 86. This one has a really interesting plot. The anime is set in a world of war where the Republic of San Magnolia has been fighting against the Giadian Empire that was attacking with unmanned drones, and after years of research, the Republic has also managed to counter these manless attacks with their own pilotless drones to lead a war that sheds no blood while their people remain safe in 85 territories protected by fortified walls. This is kind of sounding a little bit like Attack on Titan, isn't it? Although both are quite different. Anyway, here's the big dark catch of this utopian-sounding bloodless war, because, of course, there has never been a war without a bloodbath. The Republic doesn't really have automated fighter drone technology, and they've been lying to their people about their unmanned drones. All this time, those drones were being piloted by the people of a secret 86th territory who have been dying in this war for people who aren't even aware of them. It's a modern mecha anime that became a huge hit in the spring 2021 anime season and has since been among the top 300 anime on MAL with a high score of 8. The show has really tense themes of death, discrimination, and mental breakdowns, and provides a new zeal to the mecha anime genre. In fact, it became so popular on its release that its sequel was declared before the first had even ended. Also, it has only 23 episodes if we consider both seasons, so you can easily binge watch it over the weekend. Blue Gender. This is another great show from the creator of the Armored Trooper Votoms, and it takes a deeper dive into dark imagination. In this anime, humanity has found itself threatened by an apex predator standing above them in the food chain. These are the Blue, a race of insect-like aliens with specially evolved B cells who feed on humans and have forced them to evacuate the Earth and move to a space station for their survival. The story follows Yuji Kaido, a youngster who has been cryogenically frozen because he was diagnosed with an incurable B cells disease, and after 22 years, he is finally awoken, only to find himself in a world of war. He then meets Marlene, the lone survivor of an armored troop, and travels with him to return to the space station, only to be eventually thrown back to the war against the Blue. Although the show is prone to slower pacing, it prefers to have a more realistic portrayal of the war instead of fast-paced, flashy fight scenes, it has also received a good rating on MAL and presents a really dreadful state of humanity with nightmarish and bloody scenes. It also never got the recognition it needed to get on people's radars, perhaps because its themes are more serious and mature than most of the mainstream animes out there, but still, it's a recommendable anime, especially for those who have enjoyed Attack on Titan, Cowboy Bebop, and other dark, gritty anime. It only has 26 episodes, so you can complete it pretty quickly too, or simply watch the movie Blue Gender: The Warrior, if you have a tight schedule, but the movie does have an alternate ending. Valvrave the Liberator. If you were to hide a super tech war machine from thieving eyes, where would you hide it? Would it be a cave or some secret facility? Or perhaps somehow inside the sea? What about a school? No one would suspect that, right? This is sort of the premise of the story, but there's still a dark twist, so hold your horses. This anime takes place in a war-infected world where two superpowers have emerged, and they are the Atlantic Rim United States, or ARUS, and the Dorsia. I hope you caught the puns here because the plot gets quite allegorical. Anyway, there's also a third power that remains neutral in this war. You must have guessed it by now, it's Japan. But in this futuristic world, it exists as the JIOR faction of the world. And there's one more thing, these superpower factions have also established galactic colonies. So our story begins in one of the JIOR galactic colonies called the Kakumeke Valvrave, where Dorsia has attacked to collect the secret Valvrave war mecha. And their target is the school of our hero Haruto, where the weapon lies hidden. Luckily, he stumbles across one of the machines while his friends end up finding the others, and then these teenagers pilot these Valvraves to fend off the enemy. But hey, what's the catch? Well, the catch is the pilot of a Valvrave loses their humanity and turns into an immortal who needs to feed on others. And there are still more eerie twists in the show, but revealing them would be major spoilers, and we don't think you'd want that. It's a great show with something fresh to offer in the good old signature plotline of mecha animes that pits young heroes into dark and dire circumstances. The anime also won't take much of your time since there's only 2 seasons of 12 episodes each, so consider adding it to your list. It's a lot of fun. Now, let's move on to the next anime. SSSS.Gridman. The anime follows the story of a boy named Yuta Hibiki who has lost his memories and has been able to hear a voice no one else can. That voice calls out to him, speaking about a purpose he must fulfill. Then finally, the voice reveals its identity as Hyper Agent Gridman. But he meets this voice in a computer, and even more surprisingly, he merges with the Gridman computer and ends up on a battlefield fighting a huge kaiju. He soon learns that these kaiju attacks reset people's memories so that the dead may be forgotten forever. As a response, Yuta forms the Gridman alliance with his friends to unravel the various disappearances due to these kaiju attacks and defeat these monsters in the process. This is also a 12-episode anime with a sequel and a movie as well, and although the show was initially met with mixed reviews, it has grown to become pretty popular among the fans owing to its typical mecha anime recipes spiced up with a dark plot. But it also has brilliant animation and music to make the fight scenes much more enjoyable, earning it a rightful spot among the must-watch mecha animes. Gasaraki! Ages ago, the Goa family had created a demonic weapon called the tactical armor to fight enemies, and now, in the 2010s, this legacy is once again called for, but it seems like they weren't the only ones to have such a technology. Our story, thus, begins amid a war between the US and Belgistan, a fictional country existing in this anime. When the US seemed to be having a hard time in this war because Belgistan had some extremely powerful weapons in store for them, the Goa family grabbed this opportunity to display their ultimate family heirloom, the tactical armor, and deploy it with its pilot and our main lead, Yushiro Goa, to the battlefield to fight for the US. However, Belgistan was also using what looked like their tactical armor, and Yushiro ends up forming a spiritual bond with the enemy pilot. Now, the story can go in any direction for mankind. What will their fates be? You can find that out pretty easily since the anime has only 25 episodes. It's an unusual show though that stands aloof from the rest of the mecha anime, but still manages to remain a part of the genre with its realistic fight sequence, and you would also get to know how the mechas are functioning. So, overall, it's a great show worth giving a watch. Baldr Force EXE Resolution. This anime gives you an interesting glimpse of where our world might be headed with recent technological advances, since in this anime world, virtual reality is just as essential to daily life as actual reality is, and such advanced technology means there must be equally advanced hackers as well. Our lead, Soma Toru, is a hacker who once attacked the UN database with his hacker gang. But this task turned out to be a grave attempt as he lost most of his friends in it, and he himself was arrested. He ends up working in an anti-hacker squad for the UN to save the virtual world from being destroyed by the evil Fei Dao. This anime is actually based on a video game, so it only has a 4-episode OVA, but still, it's a pretty gory anime to watch, and it's so often overlooked despite having a great story, characters, and art style. Let's hop on to the next anime then. It's Knights of Sidonia. This anime also follows the typical mecha anime trope where an outcast named Nagate Tanikaze teams up with his friends and pilots a large mecha called Gardes to fight off the Ghana aliens who had years ago forced humanity to escape from Earth and settle in outer space on large ships, Sidonia being one of them, and also probably the last survivor of this fresh wave of Ghana. But despite being based on the go-to elements of the genre, it has managed to gain quite some popularity in the anime community and has even won awards for its music and animation. It has 12 episodes to watch and also a sequel to enjoy. However, Season 1 has far more to offer when it comes to gritty space battles. Moreover, this anime has managed to stand apart from the crowd in this genre in spite of not changing the conventional trope to make itself unique, so you should probably put it on your watch list if you haven't already. Now, on to the last anime on our list, Broken Blade, or Break Blade. This one also follows the go-to plotline of the mecha genre, but things have been spiced up by setting the show in a world of magic instead. In this world, the characters are able to do magical things with the power of quartz, but guess who doesn't fit into this society because he lacks the power of sorcery? Yep, it's our main lead, Rygard Arrow, and because of this, he was shunned by many, but luckily he managed to find friends as a youth, and these friends grew up to be some really important people. The word important isn't an exaggeration here, since he's befriended the future king and queen of the Krishna kingdom and the younger brother of the Secretary of War of the Athens Commonwealth, two states that are currently locked in a war with each other. Even more luckily, he ends up finding a mecha golem that doesn't require magical powers to pilot, allowing him to be part of the ensuing war. The story is covered up in a 12-episode anime and then over the course of 6 films that offer a handful of marvelous mecha duels with some brilliant battles. And to top it off, the fight scenes are also beautifully animated, making it a must-watch anime series. Marvelous Verdict! We loved how the plot of Valvrave the Liberator can be seen as an allegory for World War I, even though it doesn't fit like a glove. Still, it gives an interesting picture of what things would have been like if such a war had happened in the far future. Which anime on the list have you enjoyed the most, and also which of these anime are making it onto your watch list? Comment down below, let us know your thoughts on these series, and maybe we'll do more content on them in the future. That's it for this time, but thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.